Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my 2023 AM reading finale video. Certainly can't get any later into 2023 than this, since it is New Year's Eve as I am filming. And as such, it's been a nice, holiday weekend for me, and I got to spend today in my PJs doing a bit of reading, which is really a great way to end the year. And now I'm taking a break to tell you where I am, what I finished, and what I'll be rolling over into 2024. As always, these past few years in my AM reading videos, I'm going to start by reviewing a short story. Of late, I have been reading from this edition of the Iowa Review from summer 2022. Having so much trouble with that one that I wonder how I'll do with 2024. But anyway, I actually read from the last story in this in my last AM reading video, and rather than start a brand new literary journal in this very end of December, I thought I'd leave that to January. And I'd share another short story from an online literary journal, namely Fiction on the Web, which I especially want to shout out because back in September, Charlie Fish, who runs that lit mag, graciously published my own story, Lashon Hara, which I will link down below. And so what he does is that he publishes a new short story every Monday and Friday, so I went ahead and decided to look at and review the final short story of 2023, which was published on Friday. And in fact, Charlie wrote it himself. It's called The Cut. So of course I'm really hoping to like it, I don't want to burn any bridges here. And I think it's an interesting story. It's alternate universe sort of story that is intentionally done to draw attention to genital mutilation by focusing it more on male mutilation rather than female mutilation, which is in general seem to be a bigger humanitarian crisis, I think. Certainly when it comes to male genital mutilation, there is controversy with that when it comes to issues of circumcision and how that is perceived in different cultures, which he doesn't actually go into, even though in this story what's happening is that a young man, Feta, is going through, like, I guess a growing up ritual where he's going to get the cut, which seems like a really significant cut and very traumatizing for him, but I think Fish very distinctively or intentionally doesn't go into comparing it to actual circumcision, but just instead it's very much something that is certainly forced on him. And the ways that he's really, I think, trying to criticize the gender dynamics is bigger than just, what's happening physically to genitals, but also the cultural norms of what it's like when men are demeaned the way that women are demeaned more often in some cultures, so that, it's just seen as a given that this has to happen, and that his feelings aren't taken into account. And then he's forced into a marriage he doesn't want, and his wife-to-be immediately just starts, being physically and mentally abusive, because basically the society is conditioned to let women, in this case, get away with whatever they want to do, and men are generally seen as less than. So that's what comes out the most to me in the narrative, which goes on past the marriage and then into an issue where Feta's sister-in-law, in fact, sexually assaults him, and then he is held responsible for that. And the whole thing about the legal system not believing him as a man. So obviously the commentary is well, actually one of the commentators on the story called it a hyperbolic story, which it certainly is. So it's interesting to, I guess, think about the issues as Fish put them into the story to sort of compare and contrast. I don't think it's my usual favorite type of story because of how hyperbolic it is, but certainly there is something in swapping the dynamics that really draws home the point of how unfair these sorts of systemic prejudicial behaviors can be. The first finished novel I'll talk about in this video is The Kinship of Secrets by Eugenia, which I read for my page 112 tag for December Yeah, this was pretty much what I expected it to be. This is a family drama, a historical fiction family drama, taking place from the 50s to the 70s following this Korean-American family, based on Kim's actual family history, where her parents left Korea shortly after World War II, and they were only able to take some of their children with them and left one child behind as sort of a promise to the maternal grandparents that they'd be back after going to America to, look for better fortunes there, as you would. And then because of the Korean War, that estrangement ended up lasting a lot longer than anticipated. So in this fictionalized story, the family only has two daughters, and one goes with the parents to America, and one stays with her maternal grandparents and other family in Seoul. And so in sort of sweeping narrative, because it's not that long of a book to cover 20 years, we kind of check in and out with especially the women, the two daughters, Miran, who's the American-raised daughter, and Inja, who's the Korean-raised daughter, and then their mother, Najin, who is the linchpin for trying to take care of her family from afar, and also ultimately get her daughter to America to live with them. And it's just, there's layers of complications because of the geopolitics and also because of their own status as immigrants in the US and the paperwork that has to go along with that. But ultimately they are reunited, and then we follow a little bit of Inja and Moran as older teenagers to young adults until finally they're able to go back and visit Seoul and the family. And there's lots of loose ends to tie up because I guess the major crux of this story is that there's just a fair bit of the family trauma. There's stuff about, family members who were abused by the Japanese and during the long colonial period when they were in Korea. The father's family is lost in North Korea. And then there's secrets that come up with the two sisters and why Najin decided to take Moran with her and not Inja. And there's just a lot of, secrets around what was happening with the family and what that means to, I guess, who they are as people and how they sort of want to see themselves and define their families. And then also there's other references, of course, especially with Inja. I think it's the most well realized with the types of realities that she lived as a young woman in a war-torn country, and the friends she made, and just the economic realities and all of that. With Moran, I think it was a little more, I guess, hit and miss, I guess, for me. I mean, in general, I think a bigger problem with this type of storytelling is that it's, covering so much time without enough page count. So there's a lot of exposition. And Kim also relies a lot on epistolary style of, just telling the story through diary entries, which is even more entrenched exposition, if you will. So it was all very moving and meaningful, but it wasn't really fully explored through the characters and their, real-time interactions. So there's that distance from it that makes it a little more a little more into the melodrama camp, but there is just so much fascinating history in here, and I do think there are really intriguing questions about the types of decisions families make and why, and how they impact people and relationships throughout the years. So yeah, it was a nice book to end the year on. The next novel I finished recently was yanked back as an audiobook to the library, was Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare, and I really did like this one. This one just hit most of my buttons, I think, in terms of what it did in its specific genre. It's a secondary world fantasy with a lot of Jewish influence, and it's Cassandra Clare's first foray into adult fiction, and shockingly enough, after thinking I'd mostly be ignoring her career, I think I am very excited to read the next book when it comes out, probably in 2025. So in Swordcatcher, we're following two characters who live in this city-state called Castellane, which used to be part of a big empire, and now it's this sort of Venetian-inspired trading nation, if you will. There's a lot of geopolitics in play again, because one of the characters we are following is the sword catcher or bodyguard and the lifelong brother-in-arms to the Prince Connor. So Kel is our first person, and he was plucked off the streets as an orphan and given this life. And of course, there's always that push and pull between who am I versus who was I sort of molded to be. And then also this, just fierce love he feels no matter how it came about toward Connor. And he's thrust into some machinations with some villains in town trying to keep Connor safe as, there's plots that are going on all around him, and it's more than just, protecting him with a sword. There's, other political realities at play. And the second character we're following is a physician called Lynn, part of the Ascari people. They are the Jewish-inspired people. Speaking of Venice, they basically live in a ghetto, and a lot of the magical history is told through their perspective, that in this world there used to be magic, there were sorcerer kings who abused the magic, and then the queen of the Ascari people was betrayed, and she sacrificed herself and basically rendered their homeland inhabitable. She was able to sunder magic from everybody, except her own people have sort of a low magic that they can sort of practice in, like, healing and that sort of thing. And so the Ascari people are wanderers who have no homeland and are generally seen as other everywhere they live, which, is akin to real history. But anyway, in her personal life, Lynn is trying to save a friend with a mysterious illness, and she is actually gifted a magical artifact that sort of enhances her abilities, and she's trying to track down magic, even though in her community that's considered very, wrong-headed, and so she's flying afoul of a lot of people in that way. And then she also gets embroiled in the Kel plot when she is called in to help Kel and Connor when they face attacks because of their own plot stuff. And just the world is so rich and realized, and I loved how the characters had they had their internal drama going on, but that there was also like a very richly detailed geopolitical reality, lots of different cultures that were, referenced and thought out. I could probably quibble some things here or there. There is that iffy thing, I think, when it comes to magic, and I've been thinking of an article on Mythcreants about the oppressed mages and how weird that is, that basically the most powerful people are oppressed. And of course here it, technically is a metaphor for, the reality with Jews and what they were facing. I'm not necessarily, I don't think it, took me out of the story enough to dislike it. I think there are, in the drama ways to maybe even justify why the Ascari are where they are in the story. But yeah, I'm just saying it's not perfect, I guess, but I was just so taken with it overall. I just think it was really realized beautifully, and I was always very invested. And yeah, I am shocked, I am surprised, but really happy that that I've decided to give Cassandra Clare a chance, and I'm really thrilled with what she's doing with the Jewish rep and the secondary fantasy stuff and the richness of the world building. This is my wheelhouse. And maybe that's a reason why I'm having slightly more difficulty with this book, Song of Silver, Flame Like Night by Amelie Zhao, which was a YA secondary world fantasy book that came out earlier this year. In this story, we are in a secondary world version of China, which has been colonized by European-esque Elantians, who have taken over this kingdom and outlawed its magic, and in areas that are colonized, the people are really estranged from their own culture in a lot of ways and made to serve the Atlanteans. There's also magic in this fantasy world. There's the Hin magic versus the Atlantean magic. The Hin magic is very nature-based. I know there's a lot of reference to yin and yang and like real Eastern thought in here, and then the Atlantean magic is metal-based, and there's these magicians who've come in to help repress the people. And our main character, Lon, her mother was killed by this particular magician, the Winter Magician. She was obviously hiding a big secret that he wanted, and she imprinted it on her daughter's hand as this magical, invisible, mark on her wrist. And she's been trying to research it, but as Lynn has grown up, she's had to join a tea house as a songbird, you know, and is living under the radar in an indentured servant situation that's about to go really south when an Atlantean soldier wants to have his way with her, and she kind of has a blackout moment where she's able to kill him, and she releases a lot of magic, which gets every magic user, like, you know, pivoted in her direction for the first time in like 12 years, including the Winter King, and including a secondary main character, a magic practitioner named Zen, who's lived largely in seclusion in a school that's hidden from the Atlanteans. And they are racing toward the school, or actually currently they are in the school, and the Atlanteans are after her for whatever this mark means and what the Winter King wants. And she wants to, you know, learn how to protect herself and her people, and also she had a vision of her mother wanting her to visit a particular place that Zen has promised to take her to. In general, this is less appealing to me after Swordcatcher because, you know, it's so, you know, plot first, you know, you barely know anything about these characters beyond the plot. Everything is so breakneck. And of course, when it comes to the Atlanteans as villains, they're pretty one-dimensional, but I will say there's a lot more intriguing stuff in here when it comes to the Hin people, who used to be parts of different tribes, and there were different kingdoms that sort of tried to do their own stuff to sort of unify people, which also led to forgetting parts of history. So now that we're kind of away from the Atlanteans, you know, the storyline is a little more complex in what culture means, and trying to understand the magical world building about demons and how these practitioners use their magic. So I will give it that, but in general, this just feels a little more simplistic and just not as rich and compelling in character or theme as Swordcatcher. So in a way, it's not fair to compare and contrast. Maybe I would have actually been more easily compelled into the story if I didn't read it so quickly after Swordcatcher. But in general, I do feel like when it comes to YA fantasy, this is kind of middle of the road for me. I was hoping I'd like it a little better after I saw it in the Goodreads Choice Awards, and also its sequel is coming out next January, so I was debating, should I put it on my anticipated reads list? And at the moment, at least where I am in the story right now, which I haven't finished yet, I'm thinking I probably won't go on with the series. And I'm trying to take myself by the shoulders a little bit and shake myself and say, don't get too upset about this yet. There are plenty more books that'll be coming out in 2024 and plenty more time to read them. Plus, I have a bunch of backlist. I mean, I'm not, you know, at all hurting for reading material here. I don't need to add another one to my list. So I am thinking after this book, I will probably set this series aside. But to end with, the book I'm hoping to pick up next, rather than set aside, is this one, Caleb's Crossing by Geraldine Brooks, which will complete my Geraldine Brooks backlist reading project. So this is the one I'll probably be reading into tomorrow, or huzzah, I have the day off for the New Year's. This is her historical fiction novel, which chronicles or fictionalizes, of course, the life of an actual Native American young man who was the first graduate of Harvard College in 1665, so that is quite a unique story, and I'm intrigued and hopeful for where I think Geraldine Brooks will take it, given what I've read of her previous historical fiction. And so yeah, I've been spending December wrapping up the last of my Geraldine Brooks fiction novels, and I'm hoping to compare this book to the other two I've read this month in a video coming out in January, so stay tuned for that. And that about covers it for me now. With my next video, I'm going to take a step into AuthorTube material where I look back on my last 3 months of writing with my quarterly wrap-up that I do 4 times a year, so stay tuned for that. I'll have to see if I accomplished all my goals or if a certain septo will have to visit me. And I hope you're all feeling pretty good about your goals, reading, writing, or otherwise, as we are getting into the end of the year, or even by the time I'm filming this, plenty of people are living within 2024, and we're on to the next year. Being on BookTube, I know we're used to celebrating what we're reading all the time, but a fun part of this year is that some of my less bookishly geeky friends are sharing their Goodreads yearly wrap-up stuff and thinking about their reading, and that's always fun to see as well. So, yes, just happy literary thoughts abound, and I hope they are for you too. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Happy New Year, and I'll see you next time.